Good morning. My name is Barry Barnice. I'm a video technician employed by the Cardigan Group, located at 3633 West MacArthur Boulevard, Santa Ana, California. This is a videotape deposition of Heber Jentzsch beginning at 10:48 a.m. December 28, 1993. In the matter of Church of Scientology International versus Steve Fishman and Dr. Dewey Tourette's. Case number CB 916426 HLHTX. Taken at 221 North Figueroa Street, Los Angeles, California. This deposition is on behalf of the defendants. No introductions, beginning with the witness.
Just a moment. Mr. Bernice, would you please state what your instructions were by defense counsel with respect to the video equipment in the next room?
Counsel,
So we have it clear for the record. He's no reason why I can't have that on.
I will tell you what I instructed him to do.
No. I don't want your representation. I would like
Counsel,
to
this with the video operator is not under oath. He is not a part of this deposition.
You're not under oath either.
I'm an officer of the court. I'll give you a representation of what I told him.
All right, why don't you go ahead first, and then we'll get his version.
I advised the court reporters to adopt exactly the same setup as was adopted for the staff deposition.
Anything else you told him?
I don't recall. I didn't tell him
Mr.
specifically.
Bernice.
I told his office.
Mr. Bernice, what were your instructions?
I did talk to Mr. Berry. I get instructions. I get a work order. Just bring 3 cameras, an extra monitor, and I assumed I set up just like Mr. Berry mentioned the other deposition, just Scarf's deposition, a couple months ago. And I set up a monitor in the room next door, and the 3 cameras I set up the same way I did Mr. Scarf's deposition. And no one instructed me anything who was to be present in those rooms or how the cameras should be set up. So split screen and 1 extra monitor.
And that was in accordance with my request to his office. So will you please stop harassing the video operator, Mr. Moxon?
I just might add one thing, that the scarf setup was, of course, done by agreement with counsel. This particular setup was done without any advance notice whatsoever or agreement
Both
from the plaintiff.
The staff deposition counsel was subject to a court order on videotaping. You may recall that from the magistrate judge, and Judge Huff ordered videotaping at our option. You may also recall that if you don't look at the transcript. Now, Mr. Jentzsch, what is your full name for the record, please?
My name is Heber C. Jentzsch,
And what is your address?
6331 Hollywood Boulevard.
And are you the president of the Church of Scientology International?
Yes,
How long have you held that position?
since 1981.
Now, have you had your deposition taken before?
Yes.
On how many occasions?
I don't remember all the different ones, about 4 or 5 times.
In what cases?
There was a Lavinda Van Shake case out of Boston. I had my deposition taken in that case. There was a case with Mr. Mayo in Santa Barbara. Deposition was taken in that case. There was a case with Eli Lilly, which is a current case going, and Hill and Knowlton. And one with Mr. Mitch Daniels, which was taken in, I believe, Arlington, Virginia. Those are the ones I recall.
You've testified at trial.
Yes, I have.
On how many occasions?
Let's see. One occasion.
What was the case?
That was a case involving the raid which was done by the FBI and the Church of Scientology back in the 70s, about 14, 15 years ago.
Was it a criminal case you were testifying in?
Well, I presume it was a criminal case.
Who called you as a witness?
I believe the government called me as a witness. I don't remember who did. It's been 15 years ago. I couldn't tell you exactly.
Who were the defendants?
Objection assumes facts and not evidence.
Were there any defendants, Mr. Jentzsch?
Well, there were defendants. I just don't remember all the names of the defendants at the time.
You've got the papers, Mr. Berry.
Was Mary
You filed
Sue?
them in this case, haven't you?
Was Mary Sue Hubbard a defendant?
Mr. Berry, what's the purpose of your question?
Was Mary Sue Hubbard a defendant?
Mr. Berry, can I please have a proper relevance?
My counsel's asking a question.
I don't have to give relevance, counsel. Would you
You
please?
refuse? Proper relevance. Don't you have the papers? You filed copies of some of the papers in this case.
Have you finished your speech, counsel?
You refuse to tell us the relevance.
I am proceeding under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure, Rule 26, counsel.
Which requires relevance.
I don't have to explain relevance to you every time I have to ask a question.
I
If
didn't
you
ask part of the question, I just asked the relevance.
Then I'm not telling you the relevance. I'm proceeding with the question. Who were the defendants?
What I would assume.
Don't assume.
Well,
No necessity to assume, Mr. Jentzsch. Ask another question, please. Mr. Berry has my assumptions.
I will get to that in a moment. Was Mary Sue Hubbard one of the defendants?
Asked and answered.
Counsel, if you continue to obstruct this deposition, this entire conduct on your part will be placed before the magistrate judge for appropriate orders and appropriate extensions of this deposition.
Well, we're entitled to make appropriate objections.
But not
Mr. Berry.
obstruct. Now,
Well,
Mr.
don't just
Jentzsch,
interrupt with a bunch of speeches. Just go on with the deposition.
Mr. Jentzsch, was Mary Sue Hubbard one of the defendants?
I never saw at the time the complaint showing who the defendants were.
Who did you
And
understand?
what I would have to answer to would have to be whether I saw the exact names. I was called as a witness, and I testified in that case, and it had to do with my perceptions of Freedom of Information Act requests, and that was what I was questioned about. So that's what I recall the particular case. As I say, it was about 15 years ago.
And was that in connection with Operation Snow White?
There was an order which is shown to me by the judge. He asked me to look at this, indicating, as the judge said in that case, that Snow White was an issue of finding the files which governments had collected on the Apollo and making it safe enough for the Apollo to go to the various ports that it was traveling around the world. And as the judge indicated, it did not say anything about any illegality. It did not say to commit any illegalities. It was a perfectly legal, constituted document.
Have you testified in any other cases?
And I told you the other cases.
Okay.
I haven't testified in other cases in court, not that I know. Not that I recall.
Okay. Now, despite having had your deposition taken before, let me give you a few admonitions. You are having your deposition taken today under oath. It is the same oath that would be given you in a court of law, with the same penalties of perjury attaching thereto. I will ask you questions. You will give me answers. If your counsel objects, that is probably for the sake of the record. You may nonetheless answer. If he instructs you not to answer, I suggest you follow the instructions of your counsel. We don't wish you to assume or make speculation, but we are entitled to your best guesstimate on certain things.
I'm sorry, Mr. Berry. Best guesstimate?
I refer you to Mr. Wiener's definition of that for every witness you have taken in this case. Now, is there any reason why you cannot...
What is your definition of that, Mr. Wiener?
Counsel, my definition is not relevant. Will you please stop obstructing this deposition? Now, counsel...
I just want to get it clarified, Mr. Berry. You gave an instruction to the witness to provide his best guesstimate. I just want to know what you intend for the
Mr.
witness.
Moxon, we will deal with that if the issue arises. Now, will you please allow me to proceed with the questioning of this witness? I've already told you I intend to bring your conduct before the magistrate judge. This is a further example of it. Now, Mr. Jentzsch, will you let me...
His instruction to answer as to the best guesstimate. All right.
I will proceed with this deposition as I see fit, Mr. Moxon.
Please.
So far, you have obstructed me for nearly an hour, or at least 35 minutes.
The deposition didn't start until 15 minutes ago. We weren't brought into this room until 10:25. We were waiting downstairs for you, where you
At
arranged all your
10:10.
surreptitious video equipment. Please proceed.
Thank you, counsel.
You're not
Is-
entitled to his guess, as you know.
Will you please, Mr. Jentzsch, give us your best recollection of the events? Will you please, if you don't understand a question, tell me so. If you need a break, take a break. If you need to confer with counsel, you may confer with counsel, but you're not permitted by the rules to confer with counsel while a question is pending. And we will note that for the record if that occurs. Is there any
Could
reason?
my counsel clarify that? I didn't quite understand that direction. I've not heard that kind of direction before. I've always been told by other attorneys that I have a right to consult with my attorney at any time, that there is not a caveat that I cannot talk to my attorney, number one. And the other thing, sir, I just want to clarify, I've never heard of guesstimate before. I've always been told by judges and told by other attorneys within depositions that the exact answer, if you know, is the answer to give, not guessing. So I understand you want to, proceed, and I want to assist you as much as
Mr. Jentzsch.
I'd like to assist you as much as I possibly can. But those are two things which I've never heard of within the legal, context of the times that I have testified or that I have given depositions. So if you could clarify that with the question my counsel just gave you, then that would help me tremendously.
When you go back to the offices of OSA, or the Office of Special Affairs, why don't you ask Mr. Wiener to pull out all the transcripts in which he has explained to his various witnesses what a guesstimate is. In the meantime, I'm
Mr.
not
Wiener
going
is not my counsel here. My counsel is Mr. Moxon.
It's unnecessary to make sarcastic comments and to make harassing statements to the witness. If you've got instructions, please instruct. We're perfectly entitled to clarify the instructions. We can't instruct him not to consult with counsel, Mr. Perry.
We are entitled to estimates and approximations, Mr. Jentzsch. Now,
Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last.
we are entitled to estimates and approximations. And let's deal with the issue if it comes up. Now, is there any reason why you cannot give your best testimony today?
No.
Are you under any medication that may impair your recollection of events?
No.
Thank you. What is your residential address?
6331 Hollywood Boulevard, as I give you as my residential address. That's where I'm working all the time. That's really my place of activity.
Do you have a separate residential address?
Yes, I do, but I couldn't even tell you what it is because I've never really looked at it.
How do you get home at night, sir?
I don't have to look at the numbers. I know where the building is.
Do you live in Berthing or do you live off
Berthing.
base?
Off base.
Berthing off base?
That's correct.
In a separate house?
An apartment complex.
What is the address of that apartment
I
complex?
don't really know, but I can find it for you
It's not
later.
necessary. If you produce the witness, you can serve his office.
I mean, I really don't know the number, frankly, because I don't use any mail there or anything else. I just go there to sleep at night. That's about it.
Is it in the same complex as the rest of the Scientology buildings in the old Cedar Sinai
Mr. Berry,
complex?
His personal living address is not necessary. It's a matter of personal privacy. We produce the witness for you. If you need him produced at trial, please let us know.
Mr. Moxon, I notice you even take...
Mr. Berry, please let me finish my objection. We'd be happy to produce him as necessary. We don't want him to be harassed at home.
We noticed that you not only take every witness's residential address, but also their social security numbers, counsel. Now,
That's a misrepresentation. Just go on with the deposition, Mr. Berry, without making speeches, please.
He's the president of the church. We brought him here in an effort to try to give you as much discovery as you might even arguably be entitled to. We didn't bring him here to be harassed by you.
I think, counsel, the record will reflect that I'm the only one being harassed here. Now, Mr. Jentzsch, which church are you the president of?
The Church of Scientology International, as we indicated in the
Is there
opening.
more than one church of Scientology?
There's one Church of Scientology International.
Are there other churches by the name of Church of Scientology?
As such, just Church of Scientology per se? I don't quite understand your question.
Are you the
There
head?
is a Church of Scientology International. I am the president of the Church of Scientology International, which is a specific corporation, which is the mother church.
Does that make you head of the Church of Scientology or just the Church of Scientology International?
The Church of...
Objection.
The question is very ambiguous.
Well, let's move on. We'll come back to it. Who did you speak with before this deposition, regarding this deposition, other than your counsel?
Just my counsel.
Did you drill for this deposition?
No.
Did you speak with David Miscavige before this deposition?
No.
Did you speak with Marty Rathman before this deposition?
No.
Did you get a session before this deposition?
Ever in his life?
No. Just before this deposition.
Well, when before?
Withdrawn. Did you get a sec check before this deposition?
When, Mr. Berry? Ever in his life?
No. Prior to this deposition, in relation to this deposition.
When, Mr. Berry?
I said prior to this deposition.
Anywhere ever in his life? When?
Did you? Have you had sec checks before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Have you had a sec check in relation to the material to be covered by this deposition?
No.
Thank you.